Well, good morning. It is Friday again, and today I decided to bring you on a little trip to Boston, Massachusetts with me. So we are sitting in front of Paul Revere's house, and I had the opportunity several years ago to go back to Boston, Massachusetts, and we actually came here to the Paul Revere house. It was very interesting. And a lot of you might not know who Paul Revere is. He was a patriot back during the American Revolution, which was in 1775, a long time ago. And Paul Revere, he was actually famous for his midnight run when he warned the colonial people that the British, or what he called the Redcoats, were coming. There was actually a famous poem written about him called Paul Revere's Ride. So we're going to hear a little story. It's about Paul Revere and some of our founding fathers. Our book is called John, Paul, George, and Ben. It is written by Lane Smith. And what I like about this book, it is one of our easy reader books. So it's a fiction book, which, if you remember, a fiction book is a story made up. But this fiction book is also, it's got some nonfiction things in it. Our characters are nonfiction characters. They're real people. And there are some truth parts to this book. But the beginning story is all fiction. It's just little things made up about these young lads. So let's take a look at what happens in our book, John, Paul, George, and Ben. Once there were 4 lads, John, Paul, George, and Ben. Make that 5 lads. There was also independent Tom, always off doing his own thing. John was a bold lad. At the start of every school year, the students were asked to write their names on the chalkboard, and every year it was the same story. John, his teacher would say, you have lovely penmanship. John, your confidence is refreshing. But John, come on. We don't need to read it from space. And his name there is John Hancock. We'll learn a little more about John Hancock at the end of our story. And there was Paul, was a noisy lad. Before fun was invented, people joined bell ringing clubs. As a member at Boston's Old North Church, Paul spent hours practicing in the belfry tower. So a belfry tower was a tower that was in the top of a church where all the bells were, and they would have somebody up there ringing them. Over time, that bell ringing took a toll on young Paul. All day his head was filled with loud bings and bongs. He had to practically scream just to hear himself talk. Now that's fine around the belfry, but not at work. Extra large underwear. Sure, we have some. Let's see. Large, large, extra large. Here they are. Great, big, extra large underwear. Paul was like a bullhorn in a china shop. Your wig? Yes, it's coming. And your polka dot shirts are coming. And the pink breeches are coming. Whew. It took many years and a midnight ride for people to finally appreciate his special talent, where he yells, "The Redcoats are coming!" Everyone, except that big underwear lady, she was still mad. And yes, that was our Paul Revere. Now here's George. Was an honest lad. One day, he took his shiny new hatchet and chopped down his family's cherry tree. When his father discovered the tree, he asked, "Son, do you know who killed this beautiful little cherry tree?" "I cannot tell a lie," he answered. "'Twas I who chopped down this cherry tree." "Then run to my arms, dearest boy," cried his father, "for you have paid me for it 1,000-fold with your honesty." "Really?" said George. "In that case, when I tell you I've taken out the apple orchard, leveled the barn, and made kindling of your carriage, you'll be a wealthy, wealthy man. Look at what he did. Uh-oh. Ben was a clever lad. Not only did he have a saying for every situation, he generously shared them with anyone, anywhere, at any time. Fish and visitors stink after 3 days. He considered it his duty to provide frequent free advice. The sleeping fox catches no poultry. Those who in quarrels interpose must often wipe a bloody nose. Now, quarrel is an argument or a fight, and when you interpose, that means you get involved. Oh, if your head is wax, don't walk in the sun. 3 can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead. Why? Because that would only leave 1. The townsfolk were so taken by his generosity, they came up with a saying, especially for Ben. Please shut your big yap. Guess they didn't like what he was saying, huh? Woo. I like it, said Ben. Short and to the point. Work a fox or a turkey in there, and I think you've got something. Then there was Tom. Was an independent lad. One day, his teacher, Mr. Douglas, asked the class to make birdhouses by gluing macaroni to ye old balsa wood. Tom happily ignored him and used traditional building materials in a neoclassic design. When the class made a palm tree, Tom took one look and said, "Not on your life." Then quickly left. I wonder what he's going to do. To sketch his own tree. Young Thomas, fumed Teacher Douglas, would you mind explaining to the class why you insist on working so independently? Certainly, said Tom. In fact, I've taken the liberty to list the very reasons. Fear not, sir. I've used small words for the benefit of the dullards. Tom learned the power of his own words that day. Mr. Douglas told him to pursue all the life, liberty, and happiness he wanted. Independently, in the corner, the other students pursued lunch. Look, I think he got time out. The rest is history. Say, you want a revolution? Well, John, Paul, George, Ben, and Tom sure did. In April of 1775, they got one. The Redcoats were coming. In fact, King George III's army was marching to Lexington and Concord to arrest John and other sons of liberty. So here's where we get to the nonfiction part of it. This is what those lads that we just all heard their stories on, these are what the actual true facts of them are. Our first one here is, fortunately, Paul Revere was a noisy man. After his midnight ride, every Minuteman, woman, and child knew who was coming and what they'd be wearing. It was the start of the Revolutionary War. Here's our second one. The Americans needed to formally state their separation from the king. Who better than Thomas Jefferson, an independent man, to write the Declaration of Independence? And we've got here, simply signing such a document was treasonous. Treasonous is like illegal. It's wrong. And dangerous. Ben Franklin, a clever man, said it best. We must all hang together, he quipped, or assuredly we shall all hang separately. Kind of like that saying. We all need to hang together right now. Here we go up here. One might think twice about signing his name. Not John Hancock. A bold man He was the first to scribble his autograph, and man, just look at the size of that John Hancock. And last but not least, the war was won thanks to General Washington. Everyone thought he would make a great king for the new United States of America. But George Washington was an honest man. The last thing we need is another King George, he said. President George, however, has a nice ring to it. So yeah, George Washington was the first president of the United States. So these our founding fathers were very important people back then. And here is the ye old epilogue. An epilogue is the ending of a story. It says, George didn't live in the White House like all the other presidents. He was asked to live in New York City, where there aren't so many trees. And then to end off our book, I like this. It's Taking Liberties page. It says, wherein we set the record straight with ye old true or false section. So I'll just read a couple of them real quick to you about John Hancock. The first one says, John had the biggest signature on the Declaration of Independence. True. It was so big, he reportedly bragged that the king could read it without his glasses. And here's another one. When John was a boy, his signature was always the biggest one on the chalkboard. False. Large classroom chalkboards weren't invented until a few years later. So some interesting little bits there. So I really hope you enjoyed our book today. I had fun reading it. So I hope your Friday has been fabulous. Come back and check in tomorrow on my YouTube page. We'll see what else we can come up with to read for you tomorrow on a great Saturday morning. Have a good day, guys. Bye.